beloved soul, family, tribe, group, bringers of change. We are in a full moon of Aquarius and entering into the Lion's Gate portal. There are energy and the initiations that are taking place, leaving us in a place of choice point. The last 6 weeks have prepared us for a choice within self of to either commit further to your devotion to self, other and creator, or to continue your service to the separate mind, the ego, and to the pain and suffering story that is created within the lack of ownership, to look within oneself at their identity and to witness that. While I wait for a few people to jump on, if you're arriving on, take some deep breaths, allow your body to open, allow your mind to open. Just allow yourself to drop into your field so that you can receive this from the energetic signature and the vibration that is available, so that you can receive this through your heart, so you can receive this as an activation and not just as a piece of communication that goes in one ear and out the other. What I want to share is the acknowledgement first of when we are coming up against an ego death, when we are coming up against a part of self. Now, first of all, I want to explain what identity, multiple personalities, and ego, there are splits and fragmentations that create many different parts. So this is what we will sometimes call parts work. And when we talk about an identity, it is a specific identity that has been constructed from a experience that came to a conclusion that in that experience or trauma that it was no longer safe to be all parts of me. So I'm going to separate myself from that part. And in that separation from that part of myself, I have then created an identity that holds the limitations, the distorted belief systems, and the areas of self that allow me to hold this structure in place safely. So if we look at the brain and the neural pathways in the brain, you have multiple identities, you have multiple personalities, and they are in polarity, they're gifted in polarity. So you will create an identity that has a polarity either in the conscious forefront of your mind or the unconscious. And so some of us may spend a lot of our time in, say, the superior identity, and we may show that as our main identity of protection, safety, and validation. And then others may have a more inferior identity, or maybe you are aware of yourself and you flick between both of these. Now, all of these identities come with different archetypes, and there are many, many different archetypes, and we come with specific archetypes in our blueprint. Now, what is interesting is when you start to identify one of these at play at 111, when you identify one of these identities at play, what will happen is you start to witness it. So you start to see it, you start to have conscious awareness of this behavior. Okay, I don't specifically want to choose this behavior. This behavior is very limiting to me. This behavior has created safety. It's also created a whole set of behaviors that are not necessarily kind, loving, gentle, and nurturing to others, but they may be beneficial to the safety of myself in keeping me in a level of contraction, autonomy, or self-righteousness, and therefore I don't have to allow my heart to open and to be seen. What happens when these identities are at play, we often will look at where they are not serving us, and we will look at all of the areas of why this specific personality trait or this wounding or this belief system does not serve us. And we start to bring awareness to that, and it's like, okay, oh yeah, all right, my unworthiness doesn't serve me here, it doesn't serve me here. In relationships it plays out like this. When I feel unworthy, I feel this in my body. When I feel unworthy, I feel sickness in my belly. When I feel unworthy, I decide to create stories about my partner, to self-sabotage my relationships so that I no longer have a relationship, to make me feel unworthy so then I can feel better about myself. And there are a whole lot of different stories, behaviors, and trickery of mind that comes out. And what we don't recognize is that when we look at everything in this human existence, and when we look at mind and the human mind, everything is in a spectrum of right and wrong, light and dark. So when there is a limiting behavior that's starting to show up in your awareness, it's also recognizing that this limiting behavior has not just limitations, but it really feeds you. It gives you something. It makes you feel a sense of power or worth or special energy. There is some kind of gift that this part of you holds. Now, with this awareness, you have a specific, say, personality, and we'll just use the superior as an overall. There are many different identities in the superior identity that play out. But say we have the superior. What happens is we often don't notice that maybe we're working consciously on this superior identity, and we're really consciously working on it, and things don't seem to be shifting, and we're not seeming to get to a resolution. And it's because we're focusing our attention and our awareness on one direction forward. We're not actually focusing on the flip of the superior, which is the inferior. So there's always, if there's one identity at play, there's always another. It's the polarity flip, and you'll see it in your life experience. And this is why we have these beautiful mirrors of life, to show us how to come into more connection with ourselves and God. Because if I have an identity of superiority, then I'm also going to have some form of identity of inferiority. And I'm going to be bouncing between the two, either internally or externally in my relationships. And they're going to play out until I actually look at, how do these identities serve me? How do they gift me safety, protection, power in my life? And then also, how do they limit me? So you get looking at the broad spectrum of what it is and what they do, and why you're attached to them. Why would someone be attached to being inferior? Why would someone be attached to being superior? I know that when we look at these, it's like, well, you wouldn't be attached, right? Your logical mind goes, I'm not really attached to being either of those. I don't really like the feelings of either of them. But you do. There's the part within that does. And then what happens is when we start to identify one, two of these identities, usually at a time, because that's all our brain can really function, we are quite limited in our frequency band of consciousness to be able to focus on more than one point of awareness at a time. And what happens is when you start to see these personalities, you will start to slowly deconstruct them, because you become aware of their behaviors, you become aware of how they feel, you might become aware of the wounding that they're attached to, you may become aware of the patterns as to why you keep recreating the same relationship trauma, why you keep recreating the same limitation in your business, why you can't find your purpose. It's because there's these different personalities that are keeping you from finding that middle connection of truth. So when they show up and when you start to be super aware of them, what is available is that your brain and your identity, these identities will go, oh shit, they're about to see me. And if they see me and they really see why I'm here and the core wounding I'm attached to and the core belief that is attached to it, to why I'm holding on so tight, then I won't exist. I will die. This part of me will die. And so when we go into a death portal, which is what many of us are collectively in at the moment, is death portals, and I've had multiple identity deaths myself in the last 6 weeks, in the opening of this crown, the third eye chakra, which is my 7th chakra opening. There is some identities that are like, huh, you haven't seen us and we've been hiding in the background. And now they're like, they've been right in my awareness. And the one that has been really sticky for me, and I want to explain this because it's important to understand that when you get to that point of death, right, you're seeing it in your relationships, you're seeing it in the way you behave, you're seeing it in your somatics and your body's response, you're seeing it in the thoughts that you think, or whatever it is, it will magnify and it will become so overwhelming that you're like, I've reverted, I've regressed, I've gone backwards. And it's not that. It's that you've identified this false sense of self so much that your vibration is shifting and evolving and rising, and it no longer has space in your field to hold control over you. So what happens is it will grab to the dear life, to the absolute dear life, until you witness the core belief that holds it in place. And it may be attached to a past life memory. It may be a childhood wounding. It may be a soul wounding from before this time and space. It may be ancestral. There are many areas of where these identities are created, but they're from the sum of experience that you have up until this point of your life. They are experiences that were where somewhere consciously you're like, I'm never doing that again. And I will make sure whatever happens, I will never choose this again, which is why we have the prosecution wound, which is why there are so many beautiful bringers of change that are sitting in disempowerment and a lack of acknowledgement of who they are and why they are here, because in the sacral chakra sits a whole lot of prosecution wounding. And that prosecution wounding is the disempowerment, wounded, victimized mentality of the identity that is the opposite of the gifted, powerful, whatever. And until that is witnessed. Now, when it witnesses, you're going to find that your brain is going to go into cognitive dissonance. It's going to tether. It's going to go into so much alignment and so much connection to what you felt. You feel so connected, and then all of a sudden you're in this place of like anxiety, and you're having energy, which is energy influxes, downloads of energy, which you're perceiving as fear and anxiety, but as actual expansion, and your body's going into a place of a nervous system response, which goes into a fight, flight, freeze, that you're feeling as though if I receive this, I'm going to die, because there is a part of you that will die. If you receive that energy and that frequency and you don't slow down to allow yourself to sit in the anxiety, allow yourself to sit in the uncertainty, allow yourself to sit in receiving of this frequency, this download, then you will end up in a place of discord and tethering. And what happens is with the tethering, you can tether in this place of new energy, old energy, new energy, old energy, for as long as you choose. Like, usually what will happen is some way your soul will take over because you want to evolve, and you kind of don't have a choice if you've chosen to come here at this time of our evolution as a bringer of change. It wouldn't matter whether you choose to wake up consciously at this point and look at your shadows, or life will throw it to you. Life will give it to you in the mirrors. So it's like you can consciously choose to have awareness and look at your shadows and start to do your karmic healing that way, and very much easily, peacefully bring back the lost energy, the lost soul fragments, and rectify and reconcile those identities by consciously choosing to work on them and move through the ascension process to collapse an identity from the framework of your mind. And that's a conscious death. That's choosing to kill off these parts of yourself with love, to return to self. They are dying, and you are killing them off, but you're also returning and rebirthing simultaneously. And in that, you have the opportunity to choose that consciously, knowing, okay, if I'm in a lot of tethering, if I'm in a lot of anxiety, if I'm in a lot of, I'm in myself, I'm outside of myself, there's a lot of things coming up that I haven't dealt with in years, maybe there's a lot of triggers, then you are going through some level of dissension, where the shadows are showing up everywhere possible to say, hey, look at me. I need to be looked at to return to love. If you look at me, then I can return to wholeness. If you stop denying, avoiding, and distracting from me, I can come into the truth element of what I am. And when we get to that point of, okay, yes, I'm in a lot of triggers, I'm in a lot of discord, there's a lot happening in my world, and that is a rebirth into the true, authentic expression of my soul, then you can look at it from a place of ownership, a place of truth, where you will go, okay, this is a shadow, and I'm going to see what this shadow has to bring me. What is the beautiful light? If I was to shine the light on this shadow, what would it gift me? And the gift of these shadows, every single time, if you truly look into the shadow, every single time you lean in rather than avoid, distract, and create some kind of busyness, which if you do the busyness, you'll receive the shadows through some kind of extreme contrast in your environment. Your relationship will break down, you'll have a car accident, you'll hurt yourself, da-da-da-da-da. All of those things will happen to show you what you're not looking at in here. That's just life. So when you choose to go, actually, I'm not going to choose to learn through the contrast of the shadow in my life. I'm going to choose to look inwardly at the shadow that is here. You can then go right down to the core belief. And when you get to that core belief and you see it, there's nothing beyond it. You won't be able to find anything, and you'll know. It's very, very intense. But you're able to call back these frequencies. And this is what is the part that is very important at this point in time with the moon and what we're going into in the creation portal. Where are you in this cycle of rebirth? Are you descending into your shadows and you're starting to create from the shadow aspects? Because we are in a creation portal. So if you're only at the start of your shadow cycle, you're going to be creating more of what you don't truly desire to create from within. You will not line up with your highest path. You will create situations in front of your experience because you're unwilling and in denial to see the truth about who you are and what is there and what distortions and uncomfortable, painful pieces are desiring to be loved, forgiven, and released. So this now in this is this Lionsgate portal, this creation. So if you're starting to come into the ascension, and you can do a cycle of this in a couple of hours, you can descend and ascend and completely collapse an identity that has been there for your entire life, if you choose, and if you have the tools, the willingness, the space, and the dedication to yourself to look for it, you can complete these cycles. Now, some of you may not have the awareness of this, and you will need to seek some sort of outside help from a facilitator that has the ability to hold space for a full completion. We're not talking about just clearing. You can't just clear. You have to call back and return the lost belief systems. You have to call back the lost soul fragments. You have to cut ties. You have to clear ancestral wounding. You have to do the whole piece. Otherwise, you'll just recreate the same experience to continue around the circle in the parts that you were missed. So as you're returning, what happens is when you return all of those missing parts, beliefs, knowings, connection with source, heart chords, whatever it is, it may be a belief system and a knowing of, oh, I actually am love. You know, when that actually drops in, not just saying it, I am love, I am love. I am love, and not actually feeling the resonance of I am love is going to create more discord to show you where you don't love yourself. Saying I am powerful and feeling like you are pathetic and that you have no power and you're in a victimized, abusing relationship, that's not going to help you. You have to see why you don't feel powerful and why that claiming of that intention and that affirmation and invocation is not coming back into your field, because there are blocks. And if you call it in and there's blocks, you're going to cause a lot of discord. right? So if you imagine bringing something in that you're not ready to receive, and you're calling all this stuff in, and you're calling in this magnitude of creation and manifestation, and you have a field that's full of limiting beliefs, traumas, unseen parts of self that are in discord, you're just going to hit this. And it's going to be very, very, very uncomfortable in your physical being, your physical body, your mind, and your soul, because it's not able to be received. You can't receive something that you're at a place of not being willing to receive. And that's what a trigger is, right? A trigger is that. The trigger is trying to receive something you're not able to receive. That's all it is. It's energy hitting against each other. This is what resistance is. This is why integration takes such a long time, is if we're hitting an energetic frequency that we're unable to receive, and we go into a plant medicine ceremony and we see an identity and we're like, oh, I had this amazing experience, I reclaimed my gifts, and I had all of this happen, and I went and saw a healer and they told me that I was on this journey and I'm gonna get this, or I saw a psychic, or I had this profound thing. It's all beautiful, right? It's beautiful to receive that. But then you have to look at what the fuck is in the way for me to actually embody that. What is in the way for me to embody what I know I am? Because you can be all of those things. But you also have a whole lot of multiple personalities running here that have karmic threads that are more quantum entangled than your cognitive mind has any idea of, that will stop you from receiving that which you deserve and which you know you are. And so in this moment of knowing this creation portal, what are you creating and where are you actually creating from? This is truth seeking. It's being so connected to your truth that you can go, ah, yeah, I'm not that. I know I have the capacity to be that. I know that this is a part of me, yet at the moment I am not that, because I have this in the way, I have this in the way. And not making yourself wrong, not shaming yourself, not coming from a place of, I am that, but I'm not that, so I'm going to give up. It's, how do I love this, and how do I see this to the depth that is available, so I can reclaim what I am, so I can own what I am, to see the shadow with love. So I have just moved through a very, very contrasting day yesterday, which is unusual for me. I don't, mostly I live in a state of peace, and my mind doesn't have any looping or thought forms or resistance. Yesterday was not like that. Yesterday for me was highly triggering and uncomfortable, because it was like stepping back in time, and every little statement was kind of had a thread of a trigger, and I was perceiving it as being my spiritual ego, and I wrote a post on this in reflection, and what I was trying to do, and what we often try and do depending on where we are, we'll try and fix it. So it's like, oh, I need to fix the spiritual ego, I need to find what the spiritual ego is here, I need to get out of the spiritual ego, I need to expose the spiritual ego, I need to heal the spiritual ego, rather than, well, what if I just sit with the spiritual ego? What would actually come through if I decided to sit with the discomfort that I am being an egotistical, self-righteous asshole in wisdom? Right? Noticing how this serves me, okay? It allows me to not step into the full wisdom and purity and innocence and truth of my channel, because I have an aspect of self that's actually blocking that purity. And it also stops me from being in the humility of heart space connection with individuals, where I can receive everyone at a place of connection and love, and to be in full connection with all of life by holding on to this. So what did I do? I went through this trying to fix, getting triggered, not wanting to sit with myself. And all I had to do when I sat was the same message, was sit, allow the energy to come through, breathe, just allow, breathe, just allow, breathe, just allow. Me going, I don't want to. I don't want to. So I know for me, when I'm about to deconstruct a massive identity piece, those are the words that come up for me. Is I don't want to. I don't want to. And that's my, oh, you're about to die. If I don't want to, it's because something is ready to die off. And it's so big that I don't want to let go of it because it's given me some form of safety, protection, and a gift. So anywhere that word comes up, it's like, oh, okay, beautiful. We need to create some really love-holding space to look at this and hold it. And in that, I was focusing on this spiritual ego, but when I sat and when I allowed myself over multiple times throughout the day and then finally actually surrendering to silence and giving in and allowing the inner wisdom to come through, which was not doing anything other than sitting and waiting and being, it wasn't the superior identity at all, it was the fraud. So it was the polar flip of the spiritual ego that was showing its face to me. It was the part of self that I didn't want to look at, which was the part of me that feels like a fraud, or felt like a fraud, which was attached to a past life memory and a whole lot of narrative and story and transmutation that was something that needed to be worked through. Now, if I had not have sat, I could have stayed attached to it being the spiritual ego that was causing me discord. Could have stayed attached to that in this discomfort, this tethering, this anxiety, this I don't want to be in my body, I can't write, I can't do anything, Spirit's telling me to shut up, and I don't want to shut up, and if I hadn't have surrendered to that point, I wouldn't have been able to receive, oh, it's not that at all. And it often isn't what your mind perceives it to be, which is why we can't fix or love or witness or acknowledge and transmute from the place that created it. The mind creates this. The separate mind creates these fragments. That's why it's separation. We have to see it from the wholeness, the fullness, the union which comes through within the heart. And in the seeing of this and the awareness of, oh, okay, this is I feel like a fraud, and how am I supposed to level up into this new level of guidance, teaching and expression with what is being called forth through me, if I don't clear that in truth I felt like a fraud, a prophecy fraud. So it was around my prophetic vision and around the prophecy that I hold within my energetic signature. And the beautiful gift was it took me 40 minutes, and I've accelerated my process here. I've been doing this commitment to devotion of seeing the self and transmuting with the discipline for quite some time. So I don't expect that it would take you maybe 40 minutes to shut down a whole lifetime, but it may be a lot faster than you realize if you're willing to sit and create the space. And when you start to do that, you can use a notepad, because your brain will go into a place of wanting to disassociate, wanting to distract. It will get lost in tangents. So if you have a notepad by you, you can start to write, okay, if I'm sitting in stillness, what is here? And writing down what is here. And then sitting and going, all right, if I let this go, or if I want to see under it, what's underneath it? And just breathing and being with the self, just allowing the self to navigate this layering process. And you may only get to the point of understanding it from the concept of mind. You may not be able to fully cleanse and clear and purify that from an energetic level yet, but you may have enough of a tangible awareness that when you write it on paper, you know what it is, that it's why it's there, and then what you lost in the process of that, and what you believe is not a possibility in your reality. And just doing that is going to shift energy. There are many ways to transmute energy, in which I'm not going to express or share here. But what has come through for me, and what I would like to share at this point in this transmission, is that in the dissolving of my fraudulent prophecy identity and being and limiting myself in my offerings, it has come through very strongly the Patreon account that had started to come up earlier on in the last couple of months, some of you may already be a part of my Patreon account, and there are transmissions on there, and there's some very powerful transmissions on there, and there is another 5 to go on there today, because I'm committed to updating this platform, and also the commitment to doing group mentorship in this way. So I will no longer be coming into the space of sharing lives here in relation to that. What I'm being called to teach is, and this is not coming from a place of superiority, this is coming from a place of knowing. What I'm being called to share in lessons requires a certain evolution of the ego. It requires a certain evolution of how to receive spirit, how to discern when you are coming from mind or when you are coming from higher self or spirit essence or source connection. And that these specific lessons will be daily, and they will be a way to mentor in a group level at a very affordable rate, a way to start to evolve your internal connection so that you can line up with your highest divine path, because the majority of the collective of the bringers of change are not on their highest divinest timeline. They are distracted. And this is a message to say, where are you? Are you in distraction? Are you still committing to fear, identity, and ego? Or are you choosing, no matter what, to let go of what is here, no matter what that looks like, no matter who you will lose, no matter how much your reality will change, to line up to what your soul desires for you? It's for those individuals that are committed to let go of what they thought they knew was true and real. Because I'm not here to speak to those that want to stay in the spiritual narratives. I'm not here to speak to the ones that are holding on to their ego identity and justifying it in a story, projection. I'm not here to guide the ones that are still wanting to justify why they are doing it and to project wrongness onto others as to why they're not choosing love. I'm here to help and guide and ascend those individuals that are ready to activate and fully come online in their chakra systems, to fully come into the alignment of their higher self-guidance, and to be able to speak from a place of purity, from a place of truth, and to start to walk the path of their soul, which is the path of spirit. And this is a way that I can guide the majority of the collective without pigeonholing anyone. And all you need to be in this space is the ownership to go, oh, yeah, okay, I can see that about myself. If you're willing to have ownership, if you're really willing to have ownership, and this is ownership without shame, this is ownership without wrongness, this is ownership of, I've gone through a lot. Not just this lifetime, but multiple lifetimes. And there is discord in my mind. There is discord in my body, and there is discord in my soul. And I would like to empower myself to come into a place where I can walk in the wholeness of my Holy Trinity, my spirit essence, and receive that guidance from bringing union and communion with God. So if you're feeling the resonance, to start creating from that connection, that full connection, without it being questionable. It's undeniable when you come into that place. It will guide you very, very clearly. Then I invite you to join the Patreon, in which it will be a nice declaration of commitment to the bringers of change for me. So there's a beautiful ownership piece for me, which is this is about me opening a space where I can share much higher information than what I share here. And that brings me a lot of joy, because that's what's true for my soul. My soul doesn't want to talk about what everyone else is talking about. My soul wants to talk about the things that you haven't heard about yet. My soul wants to remember the things I haven't heard about yet. and that excites me. So, with love and blessings, thank you. I feel called to finish this with some light codes. So, if you want to take some deep breaths into your heart space. Breathing in from the toes to the crown. And exhaling out. Breathing in. And exhaling out. It is with great reverence that we come and deliver this message on the back of the message from the higher self of Gaia. It is a time of evolution that is taking place within the collective consciousness, where you are being called into the service by remembering the truth of who you are and who you have been. To fully remember that which you are in this now moment, you have to reconcile and release the past, and the karmic distortions that hold within your light body, auric fields, and the pockets of consciousness in the somatics of your vessels, as you allow yourself to bear witness to these lower densities and purify them by transmuting and returning them to source. You will indeed remember as to why they resulted in the first place. Never ever is a karmic experience of pain and suffering, a negative lensed experience, as it is always giving you the perspective to come into higher levels of unity, truth and love. As you choose to bear witness to these shadow aspects, you will return parts of your essence that have been long gone and forgotten. These primordial aspects of your divine nature will allow you to observe that separation is a choice, and you can indeed choose from union without creating contrast in your external experience. It's with love that we invite you to breathe in the knowing of this, that healing is just another story. You are whole, perfect, complete in this moment, and yet your belief is that you are not. This is what the ownership is, to evolve back into the remembrance of what you are.